So in this video, since we're doing a kind of toy train set, we're going to make a little train car that has some cages, or a cage, I should say, for something like a giraffe or elephant that a kid might play with. This will give us a chance to use the mirror modifier outside of edit mode, and it will give us a chance to use the array modifier. So let's start by just focusing on this third train base by selecting it and then hitting the slash above the number 8. And we'll start by adding a mesh cylinder, and we'll turn this into the bars of the cage. So we'll go ahead and move this over. And I want to keep it roughly this height on the Z-axis, so we're staying at 2. But I want to scale it on the X and Y to make it skinny. So just like we did the other day, we'll hit S to scale and Shift Z to remove the Z axis so we can scale just on the X and the Y and make this, I don't know, so it looks like 0.27, 0.25. Just kind of estimate what you like to be skinnier, to be fatter. I'll leave that up to you. Now looking at from the top by hitting 7 on the number pad, we're going to grab this by hitting G and move it here to the lower left corner. I want to make sure that I'm not going into the bevel part, and I want to keep it back here behind the half circle of the front of this. Okay, so we're going to array it into a row, and then we'll mirror it to the other side, or we could mirror it, then array it. With these modifiers, it doesn't really matter which one you do first or second. So we'll go ahead and click on Add Modifier, and we're going to search for Array. And you'll see that it's given us a second cylinder for the bars. So let's start by deciding if we want, we'll try about 8. I guess it depends on the size. So 8 to 10, whatever you like. And then if we look at the factor and we just change the count, I didn't point out where I was changing a number. So the count I set to 8. You can change that number to whatever you would like. The factor is the direction that the array is going and the spacing. So relative means that 1 unit means it's the equivalent of 1 cylinder. So you can see that it's exactly spaced so that they're touching and there's no gap between it. If I change this to 2, it will leave exactly 1 cylinder worth of space between each cylinder. So it looks like I still have a little extra room. Let's change this to 9. And that looks pretty close. And to make this a little easier, I'm going to select the base, hit Shift S to move the 3 cursor to the origin so I can see where the center of this is. Then if I select the cylinders, I can grab those on the X axis and roughly center that. If you have an even number, like 8, you would center the gap between that. So let's go ahead and switch mine back. So that gives me a row of cylinders to use as part of the cage for my animal that will be transported. Now we want to mirror this to the other side. So I'll add a mirror modifier. And I need to take a second. I'll collapse the array, and then I need to tell it which object we're mirroring around. So I'm mirroring around the base, and I want to mirror that along the Y axis. So now that gives us a row on each side. And then last, we need a couple to fill in this center part. So I'm just going to select my cylinders, Shift D and X, or I'm sorry, Shift D then Y, and move it in. So I think that 2 will be plenty, but I don't need the whole row of them going down. So I'm going to leave the mirror modifier. We're going to use it in a second. So it's going to look a little confusing, but I know I only need 2, and I need those 2. Actually, let's try this. If we go ahead and change the mirror from Y to X, there we go. So we have 2 here on this end and then 2 on that end. But you'll notice that they're not going in the direction that we need. So just to review, I paused for a second after changing the count to 2, switch to the mirror modifier, and change the axis from Y to X. That way I have a set on each end. Now, instead of going in the X direction, I need it to go in the Y direction. So we're going to change the factor on X to 0, change the factor on Y to 2. And for that, it looks a little too close there. So we're going to just adjust this a little bit and get it roughly even. Doesn't have to be perfect. And let's go ahead and just select both groups by selecting one, then shift selecting the other, right click and shade smooth. Now you'll notice we get some weird things. So let's go shade auto smooth, and that will do what we want. And that is technically a modifier. I didn't realize that until the other day. So even I learn something new every day. Last, let's add kind of a little piece along the top. So let's do that by adding a mesh plane. Grab that on the Z axis and we'll move it up. And it's okay if these come into it a little bit. Let's now hit 7 on the number pad, look at it from the top. And I'm going to scale it on the Y so it's a little bit skinnier, not hanging out too far past the base. Next, I'll scale it on the X axis, and I'm just looking at how much space is here and how much space is here so that it stays consistent around the outside, like so. Now let's switch to edit mode. Select the face if it's not selected. We're going to hit delete, and we only want to delete the face, so we still keep the vertices around the outside. Now I'll hit 1 to switch to vertice select, hit A to select all of them, extrude, scale, and I'm pulling it in, focusing on the space here on the top and the bottom. Now to fix the left and right side, I'll hit S to scale and X, and then drag that out like so. So that gives us a little perimeter that goes along the cylinders. Now we'll hit A to select all of it, E to extrude, and just pull that up so we have this little top part on the bars. We'll go back to object mode by hitting tab, and let's go ahead and add the bevel modifier, change the amount to 0.02, maybe 0.01, and then change segments to 5, and that will make it nice and rounded. So if you're happy with all of that, we can then apply all our modifiers and join all of this together. So once again, select each part, come to the modifiers, hit the drop down to hit apply, or you can hit Control A, and just make sure you do them in order. Sometimes if you start at the bottom and go up, it will cause some weird effects. And the shade smooth, I'm going to leave that one. I don't really think we need to apply that. That shouldn't affect anything else. And let's select these other 2 cylinders, and then we'll do the base. Now with all our modifiers applied except the smooth modifier, we're going to select everything, and I'm going to shift select the base to make sure it has the lighter color outline, meaning that it's the active object. Then we'll press Control J, and that will add them all together. And you know what? That modifier did do something weird, so I'm just going to hit Control Z a couple of times and undo that. And let's go ahead and just apply this modifier. I haven't worked with that one a lot, and I hadn't tried joining yet. So let's try this again. Select everything. Make sure the base is the lighter color, so it's the active object. Then Control J to join it, and that looks better. Okay, that is all for this video. In the next video, we'll make the caboose for the train.